Forehand. Every player remembers their first clean forehand. The sound, the spin, the rush. It's like the moment tennis becomes real. The forehand has ruled the game for more than a century. Players like Roger Federer, with a forehand once clocked near 90 miles per hour, turned it into an art form. But how did it start? Back in the 1,870 seconds, wooden rackets made it a push more than a whip. Then came graphite in the 1,980 seconds, and suddenly the stroke exploded in speed. Today, 80% of pro winners on hard courts begin with a forehand. It's the shot that sets the tone, the one that tells your opponent, I'm here. Every legend from Nadal to Serena built their rhythm on it. And yet, no two forehands look the same. That's the beauty. However, the other side of the body hides a mystery that changes everything next. Backhand. The backhand has always carried a sense of rebellion. Most beginners fear it. Pros weaponize it. When Bjorn Borg in the 1,970 seconds started whipping heavy topspin two-handers, people gasped. It changed how the sport looked forever. Before him, most players used one hand, slicing the ball gently. But then, power met precision, and the backhand became a storm. Statistically, over 42% of baseline rallies in modern tennis are controlled by backhands, not forehands. Novak Djokovic's two-handed backhand, once measured with 3,200 revolutions per minute of spin, defines balance between grace and control. The one-hander, though, that's poetry under pressure. Federer, Wawrinka, even Thiem each turned it into a painting. So why do so few players master both hands equally? Maybe because the serve arrived, turning the game into something even more dramatic and unpredictable. Serve. Every point begins here: a toss, a swing, a moment of silence before chaos. The serve decides momentum, and in the pro game, it decides matches. Sam Groth once hit 263 kilometers per hour in 2012, still one of the fastest ever recorded. That's faster than a Formula One car accelerating through third gear. But the serve wasn't always a weapon. In early tennis, players barely lifted the ball above their heads. Then, in the 1,950 seconds, Pancho Gonzalez turned it into warfare. Today, servers like Serena Williams and Nick Kyrgios use angles and deception more than brute speed. And the first serve isn't just power, it's psychology. Miss it, and the second feels like a confession. Land it, and you own the rhythm. However, the moment that serve crosses the net, a split-second reaction creates one of the hardest moves in the sport. Return of serve. The ball leaves the racket at over 200 kilometers per hour, and the opponent has about 0.4 seconds to react. That's faster than a blink. The return of serve separates the elite from the rest. Agassi built his entire career on it, stepping inside the baseline, taking time away, forcing fear back toward the server. But the first recorded returns in the 1,880 seconds were defensive small chips back just to survive. Then came the 1,990 seconds power era, where players like Hewitt and Djokovic turned it into an offensive weapon. It's not just reaction, it's prediction, pattern, intuition. Every return is a silent read of the opponent's habits. Miss by an inch, and the rally's gone before it begins. Still, when the ball stays in play, something magical happens. The rhythm begins, and rhythm, in tennis, means the dance of volleys. Volley. The volley brings movement back into a sport obsessed with baseline comfort. In the early 1900s, serve and volley was king. Legends like Rod Laver, McEnroe, and Navratilova lived by it. They attacked, cutting rallies short in less than 5 strokes on average. A volley isn't about power, it's touch, nerve, and timing. One wrong step and the ball flies out, but when done right, it feels like you've stolen time. The average pro volley travels at 130 kilometers per hour. Yet it looks effortless because of precision. Modern tennis pushed the volley aside, but never erased it. Players like Federer still charge the net to remind fans what control looks like. However, when that ball floats high above, the court turns quiet, and one of the loudest moments in tennis history follows next. Overhead smash. When the ball hangs above like a challenge, everything stops. The smash is pure theater: anticipation, silence, and then a roar. Pete Sampras once said he treated every smash like a promise to end the point. The first known smash was recorded in 1881 at Wimbledon, when William Renshaw jumped unheard of then to strike mid-air. Today, that single idea defines aggressive tennis. The average pro smash reaches 160-180 kilometers per hour. but it's the sound that thrills a clap that echoes authority. Even juniors feel it. Their first overhead that lands clean becomes an instant memory. It's the moment confidence transforms into dominance. If you're having fun learning the game like this, you'll love what's coming next. Make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss the next story. And once that dominance sets in, a new question rises. What happens when raw power meets the mind's precision? That's when the real chess game begins next. Slice. Every player finds out the slice is quiet but deadly. It looks simple, yet the whole rhythm of a rally can collapse because of it. The slice came alive in the early 1900s when wooden rackets and grass courts ruled everything. The strings cut under the ball, sending it low, forcing the opponent to bend and miss timing. Ken Rosewall's backhand slice in the 1,960 seconds could drag even giants off balance. Today it spins around 1,500 revolutions per minute and travels at half the speed of a flat shot, but that slowness hides its trap. Federer's forehand slice floats low like it's teasing gravity. Players hate it because they can't attack it cleanly. One thin edge, and the ball knifes through air like glass. However, power is coming back in the story, and when spin starts moving forward instead of backward, everything changes in seconds. Topspin shot. Topspin is energy tamed by science. Topspin shot. Topspin is energy tamed by science. The idea is simple. Brush up, not through. Rafael Nadal's forehand carries over 3,200 revolutions per minute, more than a jet engine turbine. That's why it kicks off the ground like it's alive. The first heavy topspin was spotted in the 1,920 seconds by Suzanne Lenglen, but it was the 1,970 seconds clay generation that made it unstoppable. Topspin gives control to chaos. A harder hit doesn't mean a miss, it means the ball dives back in. That discovery changed tennis forever. Now, more than 70% of baseline winners on clay have visible topspin rotation in slow motion. However, every revolution breeds its opposite. The moment players started spinning higher, others flattened out the ball again, chasing raw speed and straight-line precision. The next chapter, therefore, belongs to the brave ones who hit flat and dare the margin. Flat shot. The flat shot is the game's truth serum. No tricks, no disguise, just straight power. When Monica Seles hit her flat backhands in the early 1,990 seconds, the ball sounded like thunder in a closed room. Her shots often hit over 100 miles per hour, clean and fearless. Flat shots ride close to the net, leaving no air to breathe. They win points fast but punish the smallest mistake. Juan Martín del Potro's forehand, known as the Hammer of Tandil, once cracked 118 miles per hour, almost matching a light serve. That's how brutal clean hitting can be. However, there's always someone who prefers the opposite approach, not speed, but softness, not violence, but craft. The next move doesn't shout. It whispers across the court and dares the opponent to chase silence. Drop shot. The drop shot feels like betrayal in slow motion. One moment the rally's booming, the next the ball dies just behind the net. It's been in the game since the 1,880 seconds, when players on grass realized a soft hand could break rhythm better than strength. Guillermo Coria and Novak Djokovic made it famous again on clay, pulling opponents into traps they never saw coming. The ball travels barely 10 to 15 feet, bouncing twice before most players reach it. The crowd gasps because it feels unfair, almost impolite, yet it wins hearts every time. However, after that soft deception, players learned to punish it from behind. They began lifting the ball high into the sky, turning defense into height and height into hope. That's how the lob reclaims the court next. Lob. The lob was born out of desperation but grew into art. The first one ever recorded came in 1878 at Wimbledon when Frank Hato lifted the ball over Spencer Gore's head. The crowd laughed at first, then went silent as it dropped in. A modern lob can climb 25 feet high and still land on the baseline. Andy Murray's defensive lobs, for example, flip entire rallies, losing becomes winning mid-air. The best lobs are the ones no one expects, rising slowly while the net player freezes in panic. However, the lob's success creates its own revenge. Players charge forward, refusing to be humiliated twice, and when they reach the net again, they prepare something fierce. The passing shot waits like a lightning bolt, ready to strike back. Passing shot. The passing shot is payback written in movement. One wrong step at the net and the ball flies past before you can blink. Chris Evert made it an art form, threading winners with accuracy above 80% in her prime. Later, Nadal's running forehands across court carved names into tennis history. It's not power that makes a passing shot great, it's timing under pressure. The ball travels at 130 kilometers per hour, but feels faster because of how little distance it covers. The player sees only a sliver of open space, yet finds it perfectly. Every passing shot is a statement you dared to come forward, and now, you pay for it. However, as players keep attacking and defending in loops, one question grows. What happens when they blend speed, spin, and courage into one daring climb toward mastery? The next act begins there. Approach shot. The approach shot feels like a declaration of intent. It's the moment a player decides the baseline is too small and the net is now their battlefield. In the 1,970 seconds, legends like John McEnroe and Martina Navratilova built empires on this single decision. They'd strike deep into the corner, forcing a weak reply, and rush forward with absolute confidence. The average successful approach gives a player a 78% chance of winning the point. That's not luck, that's pressure calculated in footsteps. Roger Federer's favorite pattern, a deep forehand to the opponent's backhand, then a glide to the net, became a masterclass in timing. However, the danger is real. One wrong bounce, one mistimed swing, and you're exposed. That tension keeps the crowd silent until contact. And right after that delicate transition, the game's hardest moment arrives when the ball bounces before you're ready. Half volley. The half volley has no patience. The ball kisses the ground and rises for less than half a second before it must be struck. It's one of the hardest shots ever measured, demanding reaction times under 0.3 seconds. Rod Laver used it like second nature, making it part of his rhythm rather than panic. Modern players rarely attempt it, yet when they do, crowds hold their breath. Federer's half volley return in the 2017 Australian Open final flipped momentum instantly. It's the art of controlling chaos, of making the impossible look ordinary. However, there's something about hitting in midair that tempts players even more. The half volley keeps you grounded, but the next shot breaks that rule completely. It's no longer about reaction, it's about commanding the air itself with speed and fearlessness. Drive volley. The drive volley is part power, part rebellion. It refuses to wait for a bounce and turns the net area into a launch zone. The first player known to crush one was Lou Hode in the 1,950 seconds raw strength, wooden racket, zero hesitation. Now, players hit drive volleys at speeds touching 150 kilometers per hour, turning rallies upside down before the opponent blinks. Maria Sharapova made it her signature in the early 2000s, stepping inside the court and striking mid-air with purpose. It shortened rallies and destroyed rhythm. Every successful drive volley looks violent but feels measured, like a storm guided by instinct. However, not every act of dominance starts from control. Sometimes it comes from defiance, refusing to play safe, running around a weakness to strike with your strength. That rebellion gave birth to one of tennis's boldest ideas ever: inside-out forehand. The inside-out forehand was never meant to exist. Players used to stay disciplined, guarding their zones. Then someone many credit Ivan Lendl in the 1,980 seconds decided to sprint around the backhand and launch a forehand instead. The angle shocked the sport. Suddenly, rallies bent sideways, and spectators saw a new geometry on court. The shot often travels across at 110 to 120 kilometers per hour, but what matters is placement. Nadal's inside-out forehand to the right-handed backhand corner wins him nearly 60% of points outright on clay. It's a mix of aggression and patience, running extra meters to hit your favorite weapon. However, not every player looks across the net. Some look straight down the line, chasing risk. That straight version of this same idea pushes pressure to the limit, testing nerve and accuracy all at once. Inside-in forehand. The inside-in forehand feels personal, almost daring. Instead of sending the ball diagonally, you go straight down the line, the narrowest, riskiest lane on court. 1 inch off and it's gone. When Lendl or later Federer hit it clean, the sound alone drew gasps. This shot covers less distance than cross-court, so it reaches faster, sometimes 0.2 seconds earlier, for the opponent to react. That fraction decides everything. It's the choice between caution and courage. The reward? A winner so sharp it slices through the noise of the match. Players who master this often rule tight points because it's pure conviction on display. However, when confidence turns into elegance, the next move isn't about speed anymore. It's about touch, feel, and the softness that ends rallies with silence instead of applause. Drop volley. The drop volley lives in that thin space between courage and calm. You're at the net, the crowd holds its breath, and instead of blasting the ball, you let it barely survive over the tape. The idea began in the wooden racket era when volleys were all about control. John McEnroe, in the 1,980 seconds, turned it into theater, one gentle tap that made the crowd gasp. A perfect drop volley slows down from 120 kilometers per hour to almost nothing on contact. The ball spins backward, dies inside the service box, and leaves even the fastest sprinter stranded. It's risk disguised as grace, power hidden behind touch. However, once the game slows that much, tension grows. Because when the air fills with quiet, one player always chooses to lift the ball high again, not in panic, but in strategy. That's when the lob rises back into battle. Moonball. The moonball feels strange at first. It's slow, looping, and looks defensive, yet it wins matches that logic says it shouldn't. The term came alive in the 1,970 seconds when players like Chris Evert and Harold Solomon used high topspin shots to control rallies on clay. These balls could climb 20 feet in the air, travel 8 seconds across the court, and still land deep near the baseline. It frustrates opponents because it breaks their rhythm. They want speed. The moonball gives delay. Martina Hingis once said, "Patience wins more than pace." This shot proves that true. In long rallies, it resets time and tests endurance more than technique. However, while the ball floats above the court, players at the net see opportunity. They know that patience has limits, and sometimes, angles appear that seem impossible until someone dares to curve the ball beyond the line itself. Around the net shot. The around the net shot breaks every rule of geometry. The ball leaves the court completely, travels beside the post, and somehow lands fair. Official rules say the ball only has to pass over or around the net, not above it. That loophole creates magic. Federer did it in 2019 at the US Open, whipping the ball from outside the doubles alley. It cleared the post by inches and curved in like it had its own mind. The crowd took 5 seconds to process it before roaring. Even before Federer, legends like Lendl and Connors had tried it, but now slow-motion replays show how thin that window really is, often less than 30 centimeters of space. However, if curving around the post feels impossible, some players go for an even crazier move, one that travels between their own legs, mid-sprint, while the world watches in disbelief. Tweener. The tweener started as an accident in 1974 when Guillermo Vilas tried to chase a lob and couldn't turn fast enough. He swung between his legs and somehow won the point. Since then, it's become the shot of pure audacity. Federer's 2009 US Open tweener winner against Djokovic remains one of the most replayed moments in tennis history, viewed over 50 million times online. The ball usually travels at over 100 kilometers per hour, struck blindly with no room for error. Players time it from instinct, not sight. It's risk wrapped in flair, a message that control can live even inside chaos. When it works, stadiums erupt. When it fails, nobody forgets the courage. Every great rally ends here, in disbelief and laughter. Yet, behind every highlight lies the truth. Each shot, from the first forehand to this, builds the story of a game that never stops evolving. Every shot is a story, and this match never truly ends. If you felt the rally, tap subscribe, drop a like, and step into the next chapter waiting right beside you.